This is going to be a video on how to use the A Song of Ice and Fire web-based simulator. It's ASOIAF-sim.com. You can see that right here. Basically, first thing you want to do is select a good room name that nobody's going to guess other than you and the player you're going to play against, and then click US or EU for the type of server location that you want to set up it in. In this case, I already have one set up for the demo, so I'm just going to move forward. So in here we have some objects already predefined. We have a tray with an attachment added to it. In this case, there's also a card associated with that tray, and the attachment itself is linked to the attachment over here. We have an enemy unit set up, and we have two terrain pieces. So we have a battle map as well. You can toggle through the battle maps by clicking on this. You can select the kind of a colored area for the deployment zones, both the 10-inch and 18-inch deployment zone. We also have a grid for toggling on inches based on the deployment zone that you're in. So you can always get perfect measurement that way. Outside of that, the units themselves have built-in features like short range, long range shooting, the short range area of effect for like abilities, long range. We also have perfect movement using the arrows that are to the left, right, and bottom of the tray. The bottom moves left and right. The left arrow moves up and down perfectly, so you don't have to try to manually try to do this without getting perfect movement. In addition to that, there's perfect movement using the arrow key on the right, which will allow you to get perfect pivoting. There's a built-in tape measure, as you can see. In addition to that, you can manually specify a tape measure just by moving your mouse to a position and holding down the T key and then dragging, and that'll do manual movements, or manual measuring rather. You can also zoom in by using the scroll wheel on your mouse, and you can scroll in and see here. So the attachments and the units themselves have built-in toggling for different things. So in this case, I can take away wounds. I can also add wounds. I can also activate it, take away the tokens, setting the order for things. Also on the attachment themselves, because sometimes attachments have orders, you can also toggle those orders directly here. You can also delete directly from the card as well. So when you have a unit selected, in this case I'm playing Lannister, let's say I make a successful charge, you'll notice that when you select on a unit, you can actually snap into the enemy unit by clicking on the trays. This is based on the Song of Ice and Fire rules, combat rules. So in this case, if I wanted to snap into the right half of the unit, I could do it that way, or the left half, or I could meet squarely with the enemy unit in that case. Again, and that's all the way around. You'll see these little white bars all the way around the enemy. You just select on the one you want. That's just to make life a little easier rather than having to manually, like let's say I was right here and I was like that. I wouldn't have to like try to come over here, get perfect movement, and then manually put it in. Outside of that, again, most things in the game have a right-click context menu. So here we have an object. If you hover over terrain, it'll actually give you the keywords associated with that piece of terrain. You can also right-click on them, and there's a few options built into them. In addition to, there's area of effect for the terrain pieces that have an area of effect. Outside of that, again, we have some tokens that we can toggle on here. We have the turn token that we can toggle, and then you also have the turn token here rather, but then the order token can also be toggled. Outside of that, objects can be rotated using this option. Oh, whoops, I have to unlock it first. So you can lock an object by right-clicking and locking it, and then you can also unlock an object as well. You can select it, rotate it manually here. You can also, for movement, you can also use the keyboard. Q and E. Q will move left, E will move right. WASD will get you perfect movement. So if you wanted to move with the tray, you could do it like using WASD. If you hold down the Shift key, it'll speed that process up so you can more quickly connect if you wanted to do it that way. Outside of that, we also have the history for trays. So if I say I wanted to go back in time, I can revert back to the previous positions that the tray has been up to 20 times in total. And you can also fast forward back to where you wanted to go. In this case, I'd stop there. So outside of that, we also have objective cards. So we can draw objectives here. And we can zoom. Most cards have a little eye icon that if you click on them, it'll zoom in and you'll see the full thing. So in this case, We go ahead and reveal it, and we can see what the objective says. We can also put it back on the deck. We can shuffle the deck. It already comes pre-shuffled. We can reset the deck if we wanted to, and we could also search through the deck if we needed to as well, and we could draw a card out of there. And then we would have our card. In addition to that, let me go ahead and we have different game modes. So I'm going to go ahead and select one of the game modes because there's an important feature here. So if we click on the GM button and we click on Game of Thrones, that would set up our objectives already pre-made, and they're numbered. Because in this case, we can actually link the cards to the specific game mode. So we can link a card to objective number 4. And when we do that, it'll actually highlight which objective is associated with it. In addition to that, when we scroll in and we hover over an objective, it'll actually show what our objective is. So we don't actually have to have the cards over here by the objectives. We can just hover and know what it says. And then we could always just kind of like set these off to the side if we wanted to. So to that, again, we have game objects. So this is how you get terrain features in here, and other tokens like faith tokens, pillage tokens, etc. Also coins. There's also different terrain features that are built in here, and the numbers are associated with each are in here as well. So you would just roll the die and you can just pick them right out here. Outside of that, we also have the other tactics boards. We also have Verimir's Eagle because it's a special thing. And then we have just about everything else that you would need in here as far as tokens. In addition to that, we also have NCUs, so we can add an NCU into the game. So in this case, we have Tywin Lannister. He comes in, and we have his NCU, and we also have his card. Again, you can click on the card to expand it. And then outside of that, we also have some right-click features built in. Again, most everything that is clickable has a right-click menu. Anything that's movable in the game. So we can also claim the zones directly here, or we can just manually move them over there as well. We can also move them back to the NCU card if we want. We can also influence a unit. So in this case, we could influence, if the NCU had it, we can influence the Stark Outriders. And then when you do that, the NCU's portrait will appear next to them. This way you don't have to have this guy dragged over here, or you don't have to try to drag this big old card that takes up a lot of space next to the unit. You can just keep him down here, and the influence will show next to the unit itself. Okay, outside of that, we also have attachments. So I already showed the attachment there, but we're going to go ahead and show an attachment for the Starks. In this case, let's go ahead and say we wanted to. You wouldn't want to do this for the other your other opponent, but I'm just going to do that for the demo here. So let's go ahead and say we wanted to attach a Winterfell Guardian to this unit. He would then therefore be attached. Again, we can also toggle orders if they had orders. By default, it's just there. Of course, that's just for your purposes and tracking. And you can move them into the different slot if need be. Outside of that, we also have colors. You can set color of your army if you wanted to. So I'm Lannister, so I'll do red. And then in addition to that, there's a help menu here with the different features. So some of the key bindings that are built in, there's a right-click context menu. You can also delete using the D key. You can reset, zoom in, and you can also the snapping system, which I already just demonstrated for you. There's also a log history here, so up to the last 400 actions that were performed. In addition to that, there's a secret log that's held on the server for actions like searching the deck, because there's some cards that allow your opponent to search decks, some cards and abilities and NCUs that don't allow you to see what they searched for. But at the end of the game, after you guys are both finished, you can end the game, and if you choose to do so, you can see what those actions were. That's just there to keep people honest, make sure that they're doing what they should be doing. If they're doing what they should be doing, you should have no problems. It should be totally legit. There wouldn't be any issue. But it is technically possible to cheat if somebody wanted to. So that's just there to keep people honest. Of course, you can't see unless you're in the game, but if you're in the game, that's it. There's no more actions that can be taken. You really can't play anymore on this server. So you obviously don't want to click that until you're ready. There's also a language system. So we have support French, German, and English. And in this case, we could set it to German, for example, and then I could refresh the screen. And if we refresh the screen, the card should now appear in German. This is based on translations that Simon has provided. So if it doesn't show up in German, it just means that they haven't provided it yet. So that happens sometimes with updates. Outside of that, again, I already showed the search feature, which is a feature that you could use to search and pull out cards specifically. There's also a save and an a save feature. So in this case, I could save the game, which gets copied to the clipboard, and I could quickly show that here. It's just a large blob of data. You could save it as a file in the system if you wanted to, or just copy it and paste it somewhere temporarily. So in this case, let's say I had deleted some units and I made a mistake, or maybe we were both getting tired. We really wanted to finish up the next day. I could close this server out, because the server, if you're not playing for an extended period of time, will close, in which case you'll lose your progress. So save the game. Next day you can reload. There's an import feature. You would just paste that same text here. You would select which player you were in that context, and what you probably want to try to stay the same player in the new game and the new server as well. And then just click OK, and then boom, there's all your stuff back. In addition to that, there's also the Song of Ice and Fire Stats TTS export. So the same way if you were to play Tabletop Simulator and import from the Song of Ice and Fire Stats, that is an option. There's also this website, builder.songoficeandfire.fr. There's also the War Council app, which if you know the War Council app, you can build units straight from your phone. You can copy and paste that, send it to yourself in an email, however you want to get it to you, and then import it directly from here. You would just paste those values in here, and it should detect what type of save it is and import those. So you could import your entire army, for example. Outside of that, you can also set your name. So if I wanted to, I could set my name to Bob, I don't know, whatever, up to 8 characters. There's also an interface here. So as you're playing, which in this case, if I'm playing with another opponent, okay, I could actually see their mouse moving around on the screen. And if they open up the UI menu, you can see their mouse in the screen, which is the little green bar while they're in the interface. There's mission cards, tactics cards here, and then there's also dice. So in this case, let's say they were to roll a bunch of dice. I would see what they're doing. In addition to that, if they're rolling dice, I will see it here up in the top right hand corner. I will also see the D3, which is represented by this gold dice, and the D3 value is here. If they're not rolling a D3, then just count it as a D6, because it'll show the D6 value there as well. So you can use it as either. Okay, so back into the interface, I could roll dice. There's a bunch of options. If you hover over, there's a tooltip for most things. This is select all, so let's go ahead and just add a bunch. Let's say I had 20 dice, which is probably impossible, but let's say I had 20 dice and I rolled on the charge. I could select all the associated dice with the numbering down here. And let's say I had a charge, so I re-rolled, and then I could get rid of the bads, in which case I had 18 hits, which would be incredible if I was hitting on 4s. But then again, I can select them all. I can also manually select the ones that I want and then roll. Take away, add 1, roll, take away. There's also a revert system too, so you can rewind dice to previous states, and you can also go fast forward back to where you were. You can also click and delete them all. In addition to that, this one of the new features is an auto rolls panic and morale. So let's say I had a ton of dice here, and I just want to quickly roll morale. You just click the button, and that's it. So in this case, I would have rolled a 3 on the D3, and then I would have rolled a 9. So it's a pretty good roll. Probably didn't fail, depending on the circumstance. Outside of that, there's also mission cards. So we can draw cards this way. Hover, there's a few options. There's play, so I can play it, or I can put it back into my hand. I can discard it. I can expand the discard by clicking this button. So in this case, let's say I had a few discarded. Okay, if I wanted to be able to go through, I can quickly look at what these were. And then I can also put them back onto the top or the bottom of the deck. Let's go ahead and put it on top, and then I can draw it again. Let's say I actually wanted to put it in a game for some reason. I don't know why we would, but maybe you do. So in this case, you can insert it into the simulator or put it back into the deck, and that goes back to discard. There's also a search feature. Again, for all the decks have a search feature. You can go through here and draw which one that you wanted to draw. All right, and then in addition to that, we have the tactics deck here. So you first would need to select what your tactics deck is going to be. So I'll just go ahead and quickly select a commander, Then from here, I could draw my cards. I can, again, the difference is for tactics, you can also reveal them because there's some cards that say reveal to your opponent. So in which case I could reveal them and then I would be able to see the opponent's card. Same thing though, you can expand it to full screen. You can put it back on the top or the bottom of the deck. You can discard it. You can play it. If I play it, then the enemy player will see it. And then I can put it back in my hand. Or I can, again, put it into the game. For example, Night's Watch have abilities where they can attach it to units. So if we were to do that, I could come in here and like associate it next to the unit, like the card or something like that, to keep track of it. And then again, just put it. I can also put it back into the deck, which would go back to discard. So let's say I had discarded these. Same thing. You can click and expand, and it'll expand the cards so that you can look at them all. Outside of that, there's a shuffle button. It comes, again, pre-shuffled, so you don't necessarily need to worry about that, but there may be circumstances where you have to shuffle the deck. You can also search, as I mentioned before. We can search through our deck because there are some abilities and NCUs and cards that allow you to go search through your deck for cards, and you can just go ahead and draw that out. And then if you do that, it appears in your hand. The other thing is, as you're playing, it's not always convenient to pop into the UI. That's why we have the dice up here in the top right-hand corner, so that you can see what your opponent's doing with the dice. In addition to that, in the bottom here, as you're playing, you'll notice the tactic decks always appear here at the bottom. So you can quickly look, hover over them, select the one you want. It pops you right into the UI interface, and you can play it. And again, that's just hover down at the bottom. So it's always there for you if you need it. You can quickly reference them. And if you want to play it, you just click on it and it takes you into the interface. Outside of that, I think that's about it. Let me do a quick check. Oh, one more thing. So when you have things selected, or let's say we have NCUs claiming zones, or we have NCUs influencing a unit. So let's say, well, it's already on Stark Outriders. So in this case, Stark Outriders is influenced. When you switch to the next round and you click confirm, it resets all that. So orders, activation tokens, influence, the NCU's position on the tactics board all gets reset. So you can quickly go back and you don't have to manually undo all that. Anyways, that's how you play the simulator. Again, there's a lot of neat features, a lot of improvements that we're working on. I think one of the biggest things that people miss out on is the fact that you can select a unit and then just click right into them to get perfect spacing. Outside of that, I think that's about it. Oh, I almost forgot one actually. So we also have a feature where you can link an objective to a unit, because there are certain game modes where that is the case. You can either pick it up or the unit itself has an objective token on it that makes them worth more. So in this case, you could right click the objective and you can link it to a unit. And let's go ahead and just say I want to link it to the Stark Guardsmen. And in which case, now when I move them, the objective token moves with the unit. So again, that's just using the right click context. And I can also unlink it from the unit, in which case now it's not getting dragged with the player. Okay, so that's about it. I don't think there's anything else in the simulator, but I hope this is helpful and shows you how to play the game using the simulator. Thanks, bye.